Hello guys, welcome back to the Dana Cast. I'm Dana.
And I'm Hannah.
And today's episode, we're going to be giving our opinions and reviews on the movie Nefarious. I don't know if you guys have heard about it.
Yep.
Hannah actually told me about it. I wasn't sure, I hadn't heard about it, but we watched the trailer for it, which if we can, we'll put the trailer in the video if we're able to, but...
Yeah.
Oh? You should have accepted my offer, James.
Execution scheduled for 11 p.m. But he's trying to convince us he's gone insane.
And therefore incapable of being executed.
I need you to prove he's faking it.
Edward? I'm gonna ask you some questions.
I'm not Edward. I'm a demon.
Demons aren't really a thing. What happened to Edward?
We own him.
We?
He's a master manipulator. You have your head so twisted around you think you're the killer, not him.
And give me something to make me believe you. Prove to me you're a demon.
It's probably just a coincidence.
I want to talk to
The real
Edward.
Makes me do bad things. I can't stop him.
I need you to see something. You got a fan. Did the same thing with all his victims.
Help me!
I'm trying to, Edward, but you have to answer my questions. You have to tell me the truth.
It won't let me!
It can go away. It can go away. Yes?
No. It's starting to happen. Can you feel it, James? Can you feel it?
First off, I would recommend this movie to both Christians and non-Christians. I think it's a good movie for anyone to see modern day, and even though it is considered a horror movie, I think it was categorized as horror.
I think it was, yeah.
I wouldn't really consider it a horror
No,
movie.
I wouldn't say it's horror.
Maybe like a psychological thriller, possibly.
I would say that. More so than horror. I think horrors are strong.
There's no like jump scares or
No.
anything like that. But anyways, just getting that out of the way, it is, I'm gonna see, I think it is rated R. Let me just pull it up really quick. So if you're, you know, a kid, maybe don't see it. Yeah, it is rated R, so.
Is it classified as horror? Does it say? No, it doesn't say. Oh my gosh, it only has 35% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, but it's Rotten Tomatoes. But look, 94% of Google users liked it.
That's awesome.
Where does it say if it's a?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is horror. It's classified as horror. And anyway, so it came out this year. Came out on April 14th. Oh, that was Nick's birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, interesting. Anyways, but we didn't really, no one really heard that much. Okay, so it came out in April, but it didn't really like, I don't know, I didn't hear a ton about it. I saw, you know, one or two videos on Twitter, somebody talking about it, but it definitely wasn't like very mainstream, which...
Yeah, not like The Sound of Freedom has been.
No. Anyways, that's just something to note, which is, I guess, a good thing that we're putting a review out, because I do think it's a really important, we haven't talked about it at all. We haven't said a word since the movie ended. We just got the camera. We're like, okay, we gotta film everything we think about it. I think it was a really important movie for people to watch. What did you think?
No, I 100% agree. I thought it was a great movie. It kind of it was a great movie. It almost like, I was sad, you know, for the fact that I don't think it was based off a true story, but this is definitely the reality for a lot of people. And I think it was a good kind of wake-up call for, you know, like you said, like it's a good movie for Christians and non-believers or whatever you consider yourself.
Yeah.
I think. And I will say this is the one point. I always used to agree, which I need to do more thought into it.
By the way, hold on. There will be spoilers.
Oh, yes.
Review,
Yeah.
Because we're just going to get right into it.
Yeah, spoiler alert. But I will say, so yeah, this would be a spoiler alert, that I always agreed with the death penalty. Like,
really?
I've always thought it was
Okay, wait, let's give a quick synopsis
what
of
it's
the
about,
movie
yeah.
before we get into reviewing it. So, if you haven't watched it, highly recommend going to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's about a man who is on death row. He's set to be executed that night.
Mm-hmm.
And a psychiatrist is required to do a final review of him to declare whether or not he's insane. If he is declared insane, then he will not be executed. If he's declared sane, then the execution will continue. And when the psychiatrist goes in to do his review of this man, whose name is Edward Brady.
Yeah,
Edward Wayne Brady.
Yeah.
He discovers the man claims to be possessed. So that is the most basic, I guess, synopsis I could give without spoilers. So if you haven't seen it and you want to see it, go watch it first and then come back and listen to what we're going to say about it, our opinions on it, and all of that. Okay, go on.
Yeah. So I always agreed with the death penalty. Like, I remember even in high school doing like, you guys can't see that, but we have snacks and Rosie just tried to take one from
My
me.
dog just took my snack. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
And anyway, so like I remember doing debates in like high school about should the death penalty be a thing or should it not? And I've always agreed with implementing the death penalty.
Why is that?
I think, to me, it was like, I'm not going to back this by the Bible because I would need to have the verses and I don't. But I thought of it as, you know, you have a judge that sentences you to whatever your punishment is for whatever crime you made. So every decision we make has consequences. And if you make the decision to do something so horrific as murder or whatever it is that you're even being sentenced to death, which I know people are wrongfully yada yada. This was my mindset. I haven't thought about it in a long time, but I just have always agreed with it. But that's justice. You know, the judge gave you what your sentence was supposed to be because of horrific things that you've been proven that you've done, and some people, you know, have done those things, and maybe there's people who got convicted that weren't. But I always agreed with it.
Really?
Yeah. And like, for instance, like just to think of it kind of like another point in my life when it had come up, like when my dad was murdered, like for me, like I wanted that guy to go, you know, be in prison, and I wouldn't have minded if he was on death row because of an act that he did towards someone, you know,
that you love.
Yeah. And that hits more personal at home for that specific person, but I've just always agreed with it. But after watching this movie, and I don't know why you think, like, I don't know why. I just always thought it was okay that a judge would be able to sentence someone based off their consequences of something so horrific. But now after watching this movie, I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think the death penalty should be a thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. I know, it's like changed, and I was like, whoa, yeah, like this is, only God has the ability to judge. And I know people say that, like, oh, you can't judge me, only God judges, you know, like, but I'm talking in the instance of condemning someone where you kill them, to where then they're right then and there met with heaven or hell, like where are they going? And there's no turning back once you die. Like once you're dead, there's no Lord forgive me or whatever. Like your decision is made at that point. And
well, and I think that I guess my opinion on death sentence as like a Christian, which again, Christians have so many different beliefs, which I think even this movie touched on, which I'll go into later because I took notes. But my belief, I guess my Christian belief that I have is that, okay, so it says in the Bible that death is the wages for sin. So before sin, you know, before Adam and Eve disobeyed God, sinned, the original sin, death was not going to occur for them. And even after that, you know, in the Old Testament, people lived hundreds of years. So even then there's this idea that there wasn't that much sin yet. So people were able to live longer because there was a lack of sin overall. I mean, there still was sin, but it wasn't, you know, then at some point, I forget where, guys, I'm not a scholar. This is just picked up here and there. But, you know, then God says that, you know, people will only be able to live to 120 years old. Basically because of sin. And because of that, because I've always thought, okay, death, what we are paid for our sin, and the way I view death is really like, it depends obviously if you are saved or not, but it can be, in its worst case, complete separation from God forever. Because you've made your decision. Or you haven't made your decision, rather, to be saved. So I agree, like, I've been against the death penalty, because there have been so many, like, our justice system is just not really that reliable, although it is the best in the world. There are so many people who, you know, it comes out 20, 50 years later that were wrongly convicted. And I just don't think that that should be the role of the government, although I understand the argument for the death penalty. I really do, because obviously, like, it's really expensive to keep inmates in prison for life. Like, that's a burden on the taxpayer. I get that. Again, a whole nother conversation to get into the legal system. But just to stick to the death penalty and my opinions on that, I think it is murder, and I think, you know, that should be left up to God. If God wanted that person to die, he would make that happen. And we all know he's capable of that. You know, so I just think that that's, ultimately murder, and the same as any other murder. And, you know, I'm not talking self-defense, that's a different thing. But definitely. Execution is murder. So, that's what I think about, I guess, the death penalty. And this movie kind of, he did point that out. So, okay, so let's get into the movie. So, basically, at the beginning, the psychiatrist comes in to give him his review, and he's the second psychiatrist to come review him, because the first one at the beginning of the movie has committed suicide.
Yeah.
So this is like the second guy who's being called in. And one of the things he says to the warden before he goes in the room is that everyone deserves an impartial review, and he wants to figure out the truth behind the lie. Oh, and also something to note, as the movie was starting, there were protesters protesting the execution of this man. Like, they panned, there were a bunch of protesters, holding up signs, like, against death penalty.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, obviously there's a lot of people who hold this view that the death penalty is murder, and it does not matter, the sins that this person has committed. That's for God to decide and not for us. And kind of basically, two wrongs don't make a right. We shouldn't. Then if you're murdering, then now you have sins to answer for.
Yeah, exactly.
So, which this psychiatrist ultimately does, because, so he said everyone deserves an impartial review. He wants to figure out the truth behind the lie. Well, he gets in there, and this guy, this Edward, who is possessed by a demon, immediately starts working away at the psychiatrist. And he says that, by the time you leave here today, you're going to have killed 3 people. And he touches on the fact that he had his mother euthanized. She, I don't know, was old, had cancer or something. And he had her euthanized. And so it also points out euthanasia. So this movie really attacks all of the forms of murder that today even a lot of Christians are okay with, but culturally we're okay with. Death penalty, we're okay with euthanasia, and we're okay with abortion. And not we, but culturally. And so he points out that he euthanized his mother, and that was murder, and that made the psychiatrist very upset. And then he goes on, and this is what really bothered the psychiatrist, was when he knew something about him, which it would have been impossible for this man to know, that his girlfriend was currently, as they were having their meeting, their review or whatever, getting an abortion. And he knew that. And how would he have known that? Well, because he's a demon. So then they go on to have a very in-depth conversation about abortion, and the demon is very much being honest about the devil's playbook. Which is just, if you're a Christian, you probably already are aware of that and think that, agree with that that's the devil's playbook. But maybe if you're not a Christian, it might be a new perspective of looking at abortion that you hadn't thought about previously. And I don't know. Do you have anything to say about the abortion scene?
No, but I'm glad, in the sense of, yes, I guess I do have something to say. But I think I do want to say this off the bat. Whoever directed this did a great job at interceding, or however you would say that, these things that you said, that are culturally okay with not only non-believers but even Christians. Christians, like you said, euthanasia and abortion, because there's a lot of people that call themselves Christians that agree with abortion, thinks it's okay, even if it's before 7 weeks or something, or whatever they call it, or they think it's okay. And it's no matter which way you slice it, all killing, murder is bad. Whether it's the death penalty, which now I've been awoken to, the death penalty, that's murder. Abortion, even though it's this tiny, is murder. Euthanasia, when you're old, it's murder.
And the movie, they did such a good job, the devil did such a good job of explaining it. This demon character did a good job of explaining abortion in such a raw, real way of like, you know, how sad that must make God.
Yeah.
Who that's their whole agenda, to piss God off, basically.
Yeah.
How sad and just destroy his creation.
Mm-hmm.
It must make God when his creation is murdered inside its mother's womb, where it should be safe.
Yeah.
You know, it should be safe from sin.
Yeah.
If not anywhere else, at least in your mother's womb, you should be safe from sin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy the way they depict the demon depicted.
It
because
was really
it was
moving.
good. It was like, that is so true. What was it he said? The demon said something, and he was like, what do you mean? We're doing great. We're getting rid of racism. We're getting equality or gender.
Oh, so was she? The psychiatrist said,
Yeah.
that we're doing pretty good, like as in good. He was asking about the demon was asking if the psychiatrist. So the psychiatrist is an atheist, or claim, yeah, he's an atheist. So the demon was asking, well, do you not believe in evil at all then, or good and evil? And he's like, I don't know. I guess if evil does exist, then we're doing pretty. The good side is doing pretty good, because we've gotten rid of racism. We're, you know, equality is happening.
Yeah.
And he sort of lifts off all these, I don't know, progressive.
Yeah, progressive, that's a good word.
Utopian-esque ideas that I think a lot of Christians see right through.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because so do the demons. The demons are the ones who are, and so then he was like laughing at this psychiatrist, because it's exactly what they want. They want you to think that you're good and you're
doing great by what was it? The quote demon said that it's so true, and I've been saying this to people too, that we've become so desensitized. And that's what the demon said in the movie as well, that they've been working, which in the spiritual realm, I 100% agree that from the beginning, when sin entered, their whole entire whatever you call it, they're not, you know what I mean, their whole mission is to desensitize us and make our sin worse and worse. We're okay with doing worse and worse things.
He said they desensitize people through TV and movies, and it's all working to have there's degrees of control that the demons will have over people. I couldn't list them off. He listed them off, but obviously, ultimately, it leads to possession or subjugation, which is what was going on with this man. But he says that it starts a lot more subtly than that.
Like you, at 5 years old, you steal a toy car, is what he said. Okay. And then you move into something more. It's like these little things, and that's where the desensitization comes in. Like, oh, that's not that bad. Then you do something more, and because we made it such a more, like abortion, that's not bad.
All of a sudden,
next thing we know, pedophilia will be okay.
Literal murder is not that bad. Like, and that's what it gets to, if you follow just the 10 Commandments, we're all sinners. And that's why we need Jesus Christ. Otherwise, we would all be damned to eternal death. Eternal absence of God. I was gonna say that you touched on him saying that, it starts when you're young, and he mentioned that especially for children who aren't baptized, so you could, that was obviously a little bit of a Catholic worldview in there, which I'm just Christian. I'm not Catholic. I guess I would be Protestant, but I really am interested in Catholicism and Orthodoxy, and I find infant baptism very interesting. So I thought that was interesting that he said that, and I don't know if I agree with that or not, but something to look into and pray about. But he also, I was going to say another thing that kind of like, I was saying that this movie kind of pointed out the difference in Christian worldviews too, so that was one of them, and possibly where some Christians are open to basically the devil, like haven't fully accepted the armor of God. Another one I noticed was when the priest came in. At some point, the psychiatrist phoned in a priest to come in and, talk to the guy.
Yeah.
And he comes in, and the demon is super upset at first. He's like all super duper upset. Like, priest, we don't need you here. What do you think you're doing here? And like super standing up, upset, mad, visibly. And the priest kind of is like, it's okay. And the priest says something like, the priest doesn't believe in demons.
No.
Or he doesn't believe in possession. And as soon as the priest said that, he calmed down.
Yeah.
Because he knew he was safe. He knew he wasn't at risk. Because this guy, even though he's calling himself a priest, isn't a true believer.
Yeah.
He's become so, and that's the whole point, is that the devil has such a hold on our society, on our culture, that he's just desensitizing even Catholic priests, which I would expect that from Protestants maybe.
Yeah.
But even a Catholic priest, and we do see this, today we see, there's churches that are flying pride flags and stuff like that, but even a Catholic priest is saying that possession isn't real, it's just a mental disorder.
Yep.
And this man is just suffering from a mental disorder. Like, I don't know. To me, it's like obviously there's different Christians, they believe different things. I don't even fully know what I believe. I'm on a journey, but I do think that the Bible is very clear about demons existing.
Yeah.
And, there's instances of possession in the Bible as well. And, all of this stuff that if you're calling yourself a Christian, but you're not believing in these more spiritual side of things, it's like, what are you, if you're not connecting with God, with Jesus, and what he has given us in the truth, the word of God, and not believing it fully and acting accordingly, then you are being desensitized. And like, I hear it all the time. Like, we could even talk about evolution, there's so many examples where Christians today will contradict the Bible because, the Bible, well, that's just, that was just written so long ago, or that's more so like what's the word I'm looking for? Like an allegory, or, a story to get you thinking. That's not real. And I just don't believe, I think it is real. I think everything in the Bible is real. And I agree with this movie, with the way they presented this demon as sort of the agenda of Satan is to desensitize everyone, but ultimately Christians too. He did say that was the one threat. They were winning and they still are winning, but the carpenter, Jesus does ruin everything for the devil.
Yeah.
For their plans. So I don't know. Go ahead and talk.
Yeah. And I think another thing that was interesting, that was a good point to bring out about the priest and not believing that, which is just absurdity. But another thing that was kind of a big topic in the movie is free will. That the Lord gives us free will to choose to love him and to choose a relationship with him and to believe in him.
And worship him.
Yeah. Or you have the free will to not. So therefore, you are open to being possessed. You are open to being deceived more easily. You are open to, literally anything bad possible. But also, if you choose with your free will that we've been given from the beginning to not follow after him, then you have put yourself in a situation and in a position to be condemned, and there's only one outcome of that. So no one's put you where you're at, or where, like, the free will, like, you have free will, and if you're walking with the Lord, you're less likely to be, we're all going to be tempted. You're less likely to fall into your temptation. And if you're striving to live after the Lord, then, and he's walking with you, he gives us the ability, and it says that in the word, that he gives us a way out of falling into temptation. And I think that free will, when
he gives you
brings that
discernment.
up, discernment,
Yeah.
exactly. And you don't have that if you're not walking with him.
Right.
And if you don't believe, we all have the right or wrong morals.
Well, and I think a big part of that too, that is, they really did a good job pointing out that Christians, we need to step up our act. Because even Christians, there's so much differing opinions on things that, without tuning into that discernment yourself, if you're listening to, say, a priest or a pastor that's, been open to being desensitized, then, you're trusting them as the authority rather than having your own discernment. That's no better.
Yeah, exactly.
And so ultimately, a relationship with Christ, you're going to have that discernment yourself.
Yeah.
And it's something you need to pray for every day, I think.
Oh, no, yeah.
You guys, this movie was really good.
Yeah.
Very spiritual. The whole movie, an extremely spiritual movie.
Yeah.
Very much the spiritual warfare that exists in our modern day society. It really lays out basically a lot of, it's like a red pill sort of.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's good for both Christians and non-Christians. It definitely got me thinking. It got you thinking. I was gonna say, one of the quotes that he said, that the demon said, was that sometimes smart people have a hard time believing stuff that everyone else knows. And that's so, it's so true, because it's like, the spiritual realm is so real. You have to think about, that's like the eternal realm. Like, we're just here for a short time, and we let our heads get filled with all this stuff that doesn't even apply to the reality of the spiritual realm, the ultimate reality of good and evil. We let ourselves get all confused and look at everything like it's gray when it's really not.
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of what you just hit on too, that I was thinking about, is how real it is, and people don't even understand nor take it as serious as they should be, even Christians or non-believers, because I see non-believers all the time being like, I worship Satan, and I have my Ouija board, or however you say it, and I'm going to hell, and I'm excited, and see you there, and all this stuff. And then even non-believers have the tendency to, which I don't think about it all the time, but it's something that we should be aware of in regards to our own selves, but then also for others. And I think, like, I won't go into detail on here, but I can tell you after, but I know someone personally who was demon possessed, and it's scary.
Really?
Yeah. I won't, just because I know them personally, I won't say on here because someone might watch and know, blah, 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 but, and I can tell you more after, but it's real, and it's flipping scary. Like, and I'd be like, thank you, Jesus. I have the Lord's in me, and I'm not getting anywhere, like, for having that on myself. So that's very real. Like, the possibility, if you allow yourself to be open to that, and that's that free will, that's your own doing, unfortunately, but you can welcome just by these things that you're okay with doing, and you allow yourself in for the spiritual bad things to happen like that. But yeah, it's very real, and we should, we need to be calling people to higher in regards to taking that serious.
Definitely. I think it's okay. They did such a good job of explaining how it happens slowly over time.
Yeah.
The desensitizing from an early age. Yeah, Ouija boards, stuff like that. But even like, I don't know, just the basis of reality, like them touching on, smart people, have a hard time believing things that everyone else knows. What they really mean by that is that everybody knows we're all born with the ability to, the awareness of good and evil.
Yeah.
We're all born with that, but not even just good and evil. We're all born with, to some degree, like, a sense of reality.
Yeah.
And through, I'm going to say school, but, TV shows, everything that you're interacting with as a child, you get desensitized to that. You go and you learn things like evolution, like certain things about the world and the universe that you would never ever possibly think of by yourself as a human being operating and going through the world as it is. But now, because you learned it in school, you're smart.
Yeah.
You're smart because you know all of these things about science. It's like so obvious. It's actually such an obvious blueprint that's directly from Genesis. Like, it's the temptation of knowledge and having that pride of feeling smart over other people. But it's not true knowledge. It's deception. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that the devil never even offered Adam and Eve true knowledge. All he offered them was deception. Yeah. He was lying from the beginning. And, in this movie, the demon says that the reason why, they, the devil, but also demons, like, rebelled was because, God gave them free will, but basically wanted them to use that free will to worship him, and therefore, basically created them to be slaves. Is the what he laid out as, like, his perception of reality, I guess. Yeah. And that's exactly what you were saying. Like, Satanists would say the same thing, and they're just happy to say it, but they acknowledge that God exists and that he created them, but their judgment is so superior. It's just like, it's so crazy that they think that God is actually evil to have created them to worship him. Yeah. And it's like, again, just zero gratitude. Yeah. Zero gratitude whatsoever. Like, how can you even say that? Like, you literally are acknowledging that you've been created, but then in the same breath saying that that creator is evil. Yeah. It's twisted.
It is. And even the demon in the movie goes to say, because I forget that us people, we want to worship ourselves. You know, we want to be our own God. And that is true for a lot, tons of people. I think even the Christians, obviously we don't want to be our own God because we know who our Father is, but we can deal with, because of sin, the entitlement that some of us may have, and some more than others, but that's something that we have to fight on a daily basis. Like, I'm not deserving, or I'm not deserving, and I am not worthy before God sent his only son to die on the cross for our sins. And therefore we are able, and God sees us as worth it to have done that. And Jesus saw us as worth it to give his life to save us.
Right.
But some people have such entitlement, like, and then to go even further than just that, but to say, like, I want to be my own God. Who are you? I'm not going to worship you. Like,
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. I saw this thing on Twitter like a couple days ago where this girl, I guess, was having this argument with this other Christian who would pray for Satan, like pray for his salvation kind of thing. And I'd wondered about that before too. I think, like, well, if Jesus could save us, could he also save Satan? Like, if Satan repented and, you know. But I think that also in the Bible, you know, if you read Revelations, that's just not what happens.
yeah, no.
And so that's already been, you know, written. And, yeah, back to, I mean, not that you should... There's other people you should be praying for before Satan, but
Yeah. And, yeah, definitely. Like, and he's made his decision, because they were angels. The demons, they were angels.
Yeah,
before
and
they were
I
cast
don't-
down.
I don't know that, you know, it's like, I don't think angels necessarily get to operate by the same set of rules that humans do. We're
Yeah,
a
no.
different creation.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure they have their own rules that we don't even know about. that,
Yeah.
you know,
Our mind
their
can't
own.
even, yeah.
Yeah, we can't even comprehend. But, anyways, I don't even know what I was saying.
I don't know, but it was a good movie.
It was a good movie. Lots to think about. A lot of very, spiritually growing thoughts.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think it calls for unity amongst Christians. And yeah, like I said, that infant baptism thing, something I was already kind of like, don't really understand why Protestants don't do infant baptism. And my mom says it's because, oh, you need to be able to choose to, you know, accept Jesus for
Yeah.
salvation. But then all the time, Pastor Kyle says that baptism isn't a requirement for salvation. So it's like, what the heck is baptism then?
Yeah, well, baptism is the representation that you have chosen to die to your old self, so that, you know, going under, that's dying to yourself, and you come up new in regards to dying to your sin and choosing to turn away from that. So once you are saved, you do baptism, and I think personally that's probably a little video. I think it's necessary for people who get saved to get baptized. I don't think it's a requirement for salvation.
Yeah.
But I think it's necessary for us to do as a representation, because that's what they did back in the day, and it says it in the Bible as well. But that's just a representation of your salvation and your choosing and your choice to die to your old self and be made new, because Jesus gave that that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, and there can be more searched into
Okay.
it, but
If anyone's watching who's Catholic versus Protestant, who knows about this,
yeah.
has some strong opinions about baptism, can link some biblical verses.
Yeah.
I'd love to see you know, what is it what Dana is saying, that it's a representation of your salvation, or is it, because obviously Catholics baptize babies, so do Orthodox.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah. Let us know in the comments below.
Let us know in the comments below. It's very interesting to me. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool if Christians could kind of, as a whole, meet like middle ground and like agree on some of these things. You know, to me, it's not a big deal. I don't really care what people do, but I do think that it is a reality that like we need to be very serious about upholding the Bible as truth. And part of that is obviously the struggle in that is that people have different interpretations of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah.
therefore, I would love to hear your guys' interpretations on some of these issues. Leave them in the comments
Yes.
and
Go watch the movie.
Go watch the movie.
Comment your opinions.
Yeah,
about the movie.
Comment your opinions after you see the movie. If you agreed with us on some of it, if you had any other thoughts, we'd love to hear them.
Definitely. Yeah. And please subscribe, like. We would really appreciate that. And we hope you guys have a great week.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.